Altes Delphine.
What's good, YouTube? We are back at it with another weekly inspo with Isley. I hope everyone has been doing well. And of course, I am sending well wishes to everyone as the semester continues. So without further ado, let's get started on today's topic. So this week's topic is called, If You're Uncomfortable, You're Growing. I repeat, if you're uncomfortable, you are growing. So I really based this week's message off of a Bible verse that my favorite quarterback always says in like all of his interviews. Y'all know my favorite quarterback is Jalen Hurts. And it really stood out to me like ever since I first saw him say it. I mean, I've seen the Bible verse before, like it really like the more I saw it, it really made me like look into it. So John 13:7 says, "You do not realize what I am doing now, but later you will understand." I repeat, Jesus replied in John 13 verse 7, "You do not realize what I am doing now, but later you will understand." So when I was reading John chapter 13, I was so intrigued. So basically what happens is, so during the Last Supper, Jesus decided that he was going to wash his disciples' feet. And Jesus then goes on to like let his disciples know, like, I want you guys to see how I'm setting this great example for you all and that I want you all to follow it. But the whole time this was taking place, there was like confusion in the room because the disciples are like, wait, why is Jesus washing our feet? And that's normally what the servants do. And so the disciples, like I said, were basically trying to figure out like, what is Jesus doing? And that leads Jesus to say then in verse 7, "You do not realize what I am doing now, but later you will understand." And John 13:7 is the perfect example that greatness comes from being uncomfortable. And sometimes being uncomfortable and doing the uncomfortable thing can simply lead to greatness itself. Because when we just think about how great Jesus is himself, that says a lot, like right there. So with the topic being, if you're uncomfortable, you're growing, we are going to get into three topics. Three main points, I should say. And so let's dive into the first point. The first point is, believe in the work that is being done behind the scenes. I repeat, believe in the work that is being done behind the scenes. So first I want to say that in these uncomfortable seasons, you may, and you could even be facing this today, you may even feel like God is just stagnant, right? You may feel like things are stagnant. You may just feel like everything is just at a standstill, right? And you may even feel like you're talking to God and he's not responding, right? And you may feel like you're asking him for something specific and he's not giving it to you, right? But I want you to think about this. A person that's right next to you is not going to shout at you. They're not going to yell. They're not going to say, "Oh my gosh, I'm here," right? Because they're just next to you, right? Also, a teacher during a test is silent, but you still know that they are there, right? So you have to always remember that God is still there. And that silence and those silent seasons, those are the seasons where God is like basically molding you. He's basically crafting you, like basically into who he put you on this earth to be. So with God working behind the scenes, it may seem silent. You may be in that silent season where you feel like God is kind of hiding you, or you feel like God is not answering you. But God sometimes does his best work in silence. But eventually, that silence will speak volumes if you allow God to do what he's supposed to do and what he's trying to do. You gotta let God work. Like I said in the past, but you gotta faith it till you make it. You have to say, God, I don't understand what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know where you're guiding me, but I trust you. When you say that simple phrase to God, you are that is a faith, that is an act of faith. I remember what I said in the last video, faith is an action. Saying it, that's an action in itself. So you have to declare, you have to say again, like, God, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know where this road is going to lead me, but I trust you. I trust you. If you can trust the GPS to take you to your destination, you have to trust God to take you to your destination. Because God is in control. I said in the quote, y'all, I said, sometimes you gotta sit in that passenger seat. You gotta let God be the driver. You gotta be the co-pilot. You gotta let God be the pilot. You gotta just give it to God sometimes. So, point number 2 is discomfort fuels transformation. I repeat, discomfort fuels transformation. I want to say first with this point, God did not put you on this earth to be stagnant. He did not put you on the earth to just stay the same. You were created to grow. You were created to evolve, to become the biggest and best and greatest version of yourself. But in order for that to happen, you have to go through these uncomfortable seasons, right? And these seasons of transformation often are seen and oftentimes feel like seasons of discomfort. Like sometimes God will even isolate you so that he can elevate you. Because sometimes God says, I cannot have you seen right now. I cannot have you in front of everybody. I cannot have you around all these people if I'm going to do my best work. Like I said, sometimes God does his best work behind the scenes. Sometimes God does his best work in silence. But you have to accept that isolation, because if you're going to grow and evolve into who God placed you on this earth to be, you got to go through it. In the song Close by Marvin Sapp, he says, so I'll go through it. I just believe that I must be close to it. So close to it. You're so close to it. I know it feels uncomfortable, y'all. I can even speak for myself. Sometimes it feels uncomfortable, but I'm like, God, I trust you. I trust you. I trust you. Those 3 words, like, can do it. I'm telling you. And you have to think about it like this. I love analogies, right? I saw a quote. It said, a caterpillar grows its wings during its season of isolation in order to become that butterfly, in order to fly. You were created to fly. You were created to soar. Remember, those who wait on the Lord will mount up on wings like an eagle, and they will soar. You were created to soar. You were not created to just stay small. You were not created to just stay that caterpillar. So if you're in an isolation season, that means elevation is on the way. But you have to accept this stuff, y'all. Like I said in the last video, and like I'm going to keep saying, you got to faith it till you make it. You may feel super uncomfortable today, but you're going to be grateful for the growth that you're going to experience 3 to 6 months from now. And I want you to also remember, you're not being punished. You're being prepared. Remember, you got to count it all joy. Count it all joy. In isolation season, count it all joy. Uncomfortable season, count it all joy. Because the testing, that's testing of your faith, as the verse says. The testing of your faith is going to produce that perseverance. It's going to produce and mold who you were meant to be all along. So point number 3, last but not certainly least, of course, is that understanding comes with time. So I want you guys to remember, first of all, I like to connect everything to a scripture. I like to I always like to do that. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. So, understanding God comes with time. Understanding why you're in that uncomfortable season, it comes with time. But you can't lean on your own understanding. You have to lean on the understanding of God. That's when you have to, when it gets confusing, when it gets unclear, that's when you got to lock in with God even more. Like times 10. So just as the disciples learned that they had to trust God even though they didn't really know what he was doing, or the timing of everything that God was doing, you have to apply that same thing to your life. You have to have faith in spite of. You have to choose to rise up in spite of feeling uncomfortable, in spite of this isolation season, because everything has a lesson in it. So you always have to know that God is trying to show you something. And every season that God takes you through, he's trying to show you something. Because life is all about growth and evolution. Like I said, you were not created to just stay stagnant and just to be the same person throughout your entire life. And eventually you'll realize that the setbacks weren't really setbacks. It was they're all stepping stones, to get you to where you're supposed to go. And it's not just about the why. Why is this happening to me? Why am I feeling uncomfortable? Why, That's not what it's all about. It's not always about the why, right? It's about appreciating the journey, appreciating the process, appreciating everything that God is doing. Because if you focus so much, like I said, on the destination, I said that before in the video, you're missing out on the journey. You got to think about, what is God trying to teach me? What is God trying to show me in this isolation season? What is it? You know what I'm saying? Like I said, there's a lesson, there's a blessing in everything. Even there will be both sometimes. You have to know that you are being molded. You are being guided. You have to just let God have his way. That's what you got to do. And also, God is saying that I had to make you uncomfortable. Otherwise, you would have never moved. Otherwise, you would have just stayed the same. Otherwise, you would have never experienced what growth feels like. And some of the most greatest athletes, some of the most greatest just people that we see out here in the world, they had to go through those seasons of feeling uncomfortable, even if they don't show it. It's all a part of the process. Let's just take my favorite quarterback Jalen Hurts, for example. I'm going to always bring up QB1 because why not? He had a season at Alabama where he got replaced at being QB1 by Tua. So then God took him through that uncomfortable season because he was trying to show Jalen something. So Jalen then moved to Oklahoma to then become one of the greatest quarterbacks that Oklahoma has ever had, to then become the star quarterback on the Eagles. But let's not forget, when he first got to the Eagles, he was not QB1. But God had to make him uncomfortable so that he could show him what he was trying to do, and that it was all going to happen for a reason. And that's why he always brings up that verse that God, and he always says, I don't know what you're doing now, but I know that one day I will still understand. So I want you to apply that to your life. You don't know what God is doing now, but God already said in the scripture, it's already written, y'all, that one day you will understand. You will see what God is doing and what God has been doing all along. So to close off, remember that don't lean on your understanding. Lean on the understanding of God. Seek him. You know what I'm saying? When it gets harder, you got to go harder. When it gets harder, you got to pray harder. And this uncomfortableness that you are feeling is a sign that you are, oh my gosh, God is saying, forget the former. He's saying, I'm building you into somebody new. That's why you don't know You don't know, you don't recognize what he's doing, but later you will understand. It feels uncomfortable now, but when you transform and evolve into that person that God has destined you to be and has destined for you to become, you're going to look back with so much joy and so much gratitude. And I want you to count it all joy. That is all happening for a reason. And I want you to always remember John 13:7. I remember, you gotta just let God be the driver. Sometimes you just gotta be the passenger. God, I don't know what you're doing, but I trust you. I don't know where this road may lead, but I know that you're going to carry me through. And I feel uncomfortable because I'm growing. Remember, you're uncomfortable because you're growing. So bloom where you're planted. Embrace where God has you today, because your today is helping shape your tomorrow. I'm pretty sure I said that in a video before, but live in it, bask in it, if you decide to dwell, don't dwell in it in a way where you're just like, oh, I hate that I'm here. I hate that I feel uncomfortable. No, boss up. You're uncomfortable because you're growing. Think about all the growth you're experiencing without you even seeing it. So I love y'all, and I hope y'all enjoyed today's message, and I will see y'all on the next episode of Weekly Inspo with Isley, and love y'all. Bye.